took our break, I was saying how we have to stand up, Antoine. Let me tell you something. We protect our women and our children, not because they are weak, but because they are important to us. You hear me? So this is why I'm calling on all my real men out there. We protect our women and our children because they are important to us. We protect each other because we're important to each other. And if we don't understand that, we are doomed to fail.
I will reframe that slightly. I will say that we stand with our women as agents.
I'm not reframing that.
I am. I will reframe that, and I will say that we stand with our women. We understand the issues that are unique to their position in society. We understand the issues that are unique to their workplaces and to how they're politically engaged with. And we understand their fight for agency and their fight for acknowledgement. And just as we stand with solidarity with organizations, we stand in solidarity with our women for the pursuit of their agency. At least I do.
Well, I'm about to say something. Let me tell you something. No. I hear you. Listen.
What are you saying?
What I said don't need to be clarified.
I'm not just reframing. I'm using a different framing. That's all I'm doing.
I'm framing the way it needs to be framed. Because you know what? Playtime is over.
Oh, yeah, I agree.
We protect each other because we're important to one another. Just like, see, you left out.
Yes.
Just like the white supremacy.
No,
you left out. What about me? What about the children?
What about you? Again, listen.
I said we protect each other. Women, children, and each other. You said we stand with our women.
Yeah, absolutely.
What about our children?
Absolutely.
What about our children?
We stand in solidarity with them. Absolutely.
What about our children?
That women encompasses the children.
No. Children are different. They have different needs than our women do. They have different needs than I have.
Okay, again, the things that are specifically legislated against women are things that are specifically legislated against girls as well. So when we're standing with issues that are related to family, when we're standing with issues related to women and gender, we are standing with issues that necessarily involve our girls. And this is actually relevant to one of the stories that I'm going to bring up, Rachel. But first, two notes of good news. The first bit of good news is that this week, Supreme Court, federal court determined that the Alabama abortion bill is unconstitutional and it will not stand. The ACLU was able to successfully do a lawsuit against it, and it was overturned, if I'm not mistaken, by a black judge. So again, that is the first thing that we want to note. And the same thing also happened in Georgia. Now, if I'm not mistaken, the circumstances in Georgia are more sketchy. They are, I think it's in a state where it's not going to be enforced until the law is settled. So I don't know. I don't think that is actually as settled as Alabama is. But Alabama's was struck down completely. But the thing that I wanted to note, and this is actually related to the women and girls distinction, because when we're talking about women's issues, we're necessarily talking about both. In Missouri, we found out that the state was camping outside of Planned Parenthoods and making spreadsheets to monitor the period of every single woman and girl that went inside of a Planned Parenthood. And when we're talking about, one of the things that we talked about a few months ago was, if I'm not mistaken, the last abortion clinic was closing in Missouri, and they were able to keep it open with a protest. Well, one of the reasons why they were able to close it was precisely because of the period monitoring that the government was doing against women. Now, when we're standing with, we are standing with the fact that they deserve the same health care that anyone else gets. We're standing with the fact that they have specific needs that are determined by their gender composition and by biology. And we stand with them in the pursuit of those needs and with the agency necessary to actually get that kind of health care. Now, when we do not stand with them, stuff like this goes silent. And you don't disagree with that. I know you don't disagree with that.
I was with you.
Yeah.
I was with you. I agree. Again, we have, our women have special needs. Black women have different needs because they're treated differently. They're treated, under the same umbrella, they're treated differently. And that's why I make the distinction about our women, our children, our young boys, and our men, each other. We all have a different set of needs than our white counterparts.
That's true. No, that's true. I'm not disagreeing with you necessarily. This is especially true with reproductive rights. But we should also note that the things that white men and white governments are using to actually control and maintain power over white women are things that trickle down to how what will affect black women as well, and they will affect black women disproportionately. So when we're talking about about abortion, we are fundamentally talking about a healthcare issue where not every woman is guaranteed to have a child that can healthily be taken to term.
Right.
Not every woman is guaranteed adequate health care for that kind of situation. Exactly. So when we're talking about abortion rights, we are fundamentally talking about making sure that women have full access to the whole plethora of options that are relating to reproductive care and to reproductive rights. And Republican governments are abjectly denying that. They're denying that to them. And again, standing with women in this context means standing against that fact and making sure that we actually call it out in direct and clear language, which we do on the show.
All right. Yeah, let's get back to this thing in Missouri.
Again, we talk about, people talk about fascism, people talk about totalitarianism, people talk about dystopias. This is dystopian. This is fascist. This is about using the power of state to maintain a specifically white understanding of gender and projecting that and enforcing that on citizens whether or not they agree with it themselves. And we should note that the consequence of this is that they used spreadsheets to monitor the periods of women who went into Planned Parenthood, and then went on to actually deny them that full health care, regardless of whether that affected whether that affected their childbirth, whether that affected their health care needs, whether that affected whether or not that child or that mother could live. So I think that we have to be very clear that when we're talking about abortion rights, we're talking about a legislative effort to control women.
Yeah, and like you said, Antoine, let's be clear about this to my, I'll just say church folks. I'll put it like that. Regardless of what you believe about abortion, this is not an abortion issue. It's a healthcare issue.
That's right.
It's the right for a woman to have access.
That's right.
To take care of her body.
That's right.
Because these Planned Parenthoods, they're making it about one thing, but it's access.
Right. They do mammograms. They do contraceptives. Yeah. They do period regular. Yeah. Exactly. Exactly.
Hormone treatments. Whatever goes on. Make no mistake. When you boil it down to abortion, you're
playing into the hands of the right. Yeah. But when we run away from the necessity of having abortion access, we are also playing into the hands of the right. So, again, we should note that abortion is not an evil term or an evil word. It is just an option in a sequence of options that are necessary for a woman to have control over her body and for her to be able to or for her to have access to adequate health care. And in a state that does such a poor job teaching sex education, in a state that does such a poor job having options to take care of children, it is absolutely criminal and dangerous to have this kind of situation take place. And I'll just remind everybody that black women are 239% more likely to die at childbirth than white women. They have a maternal mortality rate that's 3 to 4 times the rate of white women. So when we're taking reproductive options off the table, what we're doing is we are putting black women in a position where they are more likely to die at childbirth at the hands of doctors who do not care for them.
Right. And that again is all due to the fact that they don't have prenatal care. They don't have sex education. It's good. So again, these are the things. Don't get caught up in the rhetoric of about
pro-choice versus pro-life.
Right. Yeah, this is not it is a pro-choice. The pro-choice is the choice that you have of doctors to treat you before you get pregnant. The choice that you have to go see a doctor to prescribe contraceptives if that's what you choose. The right for you to be treated, that your body can hold a child properly. If you can't, if you want to. These are all the things that are encompassed under this thing. But they're boiling it down to the most divisive thing: abortion. So they're making it about abortion. So the moral right, as it were, or the evangelicals say abortion is wrong. This is not about abortion. It's about a woman's right to have access to health care. But they put a stigma on it, and you lose your mind. It's about health care for women. Our women, you know,
but we should also talk about what they're doing to place that stigma. They're not only making the state monitor women who have periods, which sounds like big government to me. I thought that they opposed that, Herschel, but you know that sounds like big government to me. But you know they're not just monitoring women who are having their periods. They're also supporting terrorism. They're accosting women who go into Planned Parenthoods, throwing things at them, shouting at them, telling them that they're killing babies outside of abortion clinics. There are people like George Tillett that they shot in his church, if I'm not mistaken. The abortion rights movement has fundamentally operated with a level of coercion that has gone unnoticed and unmentioned. But the end game is this. The end game is a political effort to ensure that women are not equal citizens, and then to use the legislative process to actually control all of their choices based on their own personal politics. And it's mostly men who are making these decisions, white men who are fundamentally making these decisions. So we should be very clear about what the stakes are and what the consequences have been. And we should also note the future that the people who fashion themselves as pro-life wants is a future that looks like this, where they're putting your periods on spreadsheets and determining whether or not you are aborting a baby, and then punishing you for doing so and stopping you from actually being a professional or standing citizen.
Well, you know, Antoine, it's even a little more sinister than that as well. And you know, sometimes we don't want to talk about the elephant in the room, but the white birth rate is way down. It's down. These old white guys, they see their power dwindling because white women aren't having children.
No.
Let me tell you something. Wait. Statistically, when abortion is legal, white women have more abortions than black women. I'm not judging. I'm just saying what the numbers.
The reason why. Okay. First off, when we talk about the birth rate, we're fundamentally talking about something that's determined by class. Because the reason why it's determined by class is because richer people are more likely to get sufficient sex education, but they're also more likely to get paid for access to things like contraceptives. Birth control is expensive, people. Birth control is expensive. Teenagers cannot pay for birth control by themselves with no job. So when you're in a certain, the reason why the birth rate is lower for rich people and higher for poor people is precisely because of things like sex education and access to contraceptives and the
access to abortion.
Yes, and access to abortions. Yes.
So again.
And that's one thing that we should keep in mind. Regardless of what happens, if abortion was banned tomorrow, if they banned Roe v. Wade tomorrow, those rich Republican congressmen with those with mistresses, those mistresses, they're just going to go to Cuba to get their abortions, or Mexico, or maybe they'll have a nice little or Canada. Exactly. So the people who are pushing for this the most are also the people who have the least to lose from stuff like this, because they're taken care of. They will be able to travel for their abortions. They will have health care that will be sufficient to require it. So,
which is more important, the healthcare issue, the healthcare aspect is the most important.
Right, absolutely.